The void between dimensions cracked like shattered glass. Reality itself seemed to recoil, as something impossible forced its way through the barrier between worlds. In the peaceful realm of Minecraft, where Steve had spent countless days mining diamonds and building elaborate castles, the very fabric of existence began to unravel. The familiar blue sky flickered with crimson lightning. The gentle hum of bees and the distant mooing of cows fell silent as every creature in the overworld sensed that something terrible had arrived. What emerged from that dimensional tier was not another player seeking adventure or a lost wanderer from distant lands. It was something far more dangerous, something that had spent eternity fighting demons in the depths of hell itself. The Doomslayer stepped into this blocky paradise with the same relentless purpose that had driven him through the corridors of Mars facilities and the burning landscapes of demon-infested dimensions. His armor, scarred by countless battles against the forces of hell, gleamed with an otherworldly energy that made the very air around him shimmer with barely contained violence. But here's where things get intriguing. You see, most people think they understand what would happen if the most feared demon hunter in gaming history suddenly found himself in the most peaceful sandbox world ever created. They imagine explosions, chaos, and absolute destruction raining down upon innocent villagers and peaceful farms. They picture the Doomslayer tearing through the zombies like tissue paper, leaving nothing but crater-filled landscapes and burning forests in his wake. But that assumption reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of both characters and the universe they would create together. The truth is far more complex and infinitely more fascinating than anyone realizes. When an unstoppable force meets an immovable object, when infinite rage encounters infinite creativity, when the destroyer of demons walks into a world built entirely on the foundation of creation and exploration, something unprecedented happens. This would bring about a transformation that would forever alter both the Doomslayer and the Minecraft universe. Today, we're diving deep into this incredible hypothetical scenario. We're going to explore every aspect of what would really happen if the most ruthless warrior in gaming history suddenly found himself spawning on a beach next to a village, surrounded by nothing but blocks, possibilities, and the gentle sound of waves lapping against pixelated shores. We'll examine how his presence would affect every aspect of the Minecraft world, from the humblest dirt block to the most powerful ender dragon. We'll discover how the game's mechanics would bend and reshape around his unique abilities, and how his eternal mission might find new purpose in a realm where death is temporary, but creation is eternal. But before we begin this journey into the ultimate gaming crossover, let me tell you why this matters. This isn't just about imagining cool fights or spectacular explosions. This is about understanding what happens when two completely different philosophies of existence collide. The Doomslayer represents pure, focused destruction in service of a greater good. Minecraft represents unlimited creative potential emerging from the simplest possible foundation. When these forces meet, they don't cancel each other out. Instead, they create something entirely new. Picture this moment of arrival. The dimensional rift closes behind the Doomslayer with a sound like thunder echoing across infinity. He stands motionless for exactly 3 seconds, his enhanced senses cataloging every detail of this strange new environment. The sun hangs impossibly square in a sky that defies every law of physics he's ever known. Trees grow in perfect geometric shapes, their leaves defying gravity in ways that would make scientists weep. The ground beneath his feet consists of discrete cubes of matter, each one exactly 1 meter in every direction, arranged in patterns that somehow manage to create recognizable landscapes, despite their rigid mathematical precision. His first instinct, honed by countless battles against demonic hordes, is to scan for threats. His heads-up display flickers to life, analyzing everything within his field of vision. Threat level readings come back completely blank. not because there are no potential enemies, but because the very concept of threat assessment breaks down in a world where death is temporary and respawn is guaranteed. His targeting systems struggle to classify the shambling zombies that emerge with the setting sun. Are they demons? Are they undead? Are they even truly hostile? Or are they simply following behavioral patterns programmed into the fabric of reality itself? The first zombie that approaches him meets the business end of his combat shotgun before it can so much as groan. The creature explodes into experience orbs and drops of rotten flesh, but instead of staying dead like every demon he's ever faced, it simply disappears with a small puff of smoke. No dramatic death animation, no screams of banishment back to hell, just a quiet acknowledgement that this particular threat has been neutralized according to the rules of this reality. But here's where the Doomslayer's analytical mind begins to work. He notices that the zombie didn't fight with the desperate savagery of a demon. It didn't claw at him with the fury of something trying to drag his soul into eternal torment. It simply wandered toward him with the mindless persistence of a natural phenomenon, like water flowing downhill or fire consuming oxygen. This observation plants the first seed of what will eventually become a complete philosophical transformation. The second zombie that approaches receives different treatment. Instead of immediately destroying it, the Doomslayer observes its behavior patterns. He notes how it moves with mechanical predictability, how it ignores everything except the nearest player character, and how it seems driven by simple programming rather than malevolent intelligence. When he finally does eliminate this second zombie, he does so with surgical precision rather than overwhelming force. One clean shot, minimal energy expenditure, maximum efficiency. This shift in approach represents something that has never happened before in the Doomslayer's existence. For the first time since awakening in that sarcophagus on Mars, he encounters hostile entities that don't fill him with righteous fury. They're obstacles to be cleared, rather than embodiments of evil to be utterly annihilated. The distinction might seem subtle, but it represents a fundamental change in how he processes the world around him. As the night progresses and more creatures spawn around him, the Doomslayer begins to understand the rhythms of this strange realm. Skeletons emerge from the shadows with their primitive bows, shooting arrows with predictable accuracy. Creepers shuffle toward him with their distinctive hissing waddle, carrying enough explosive force to crater the landscape, but lacking the intelligence to use it strategically. Spiders click and chitter as they leap through the darkness, their movements following patterns that any experienced warrior could predict and counter. None of these creatures fight with the desperate cunning of demons. None of them coordinate their attacks or adapt their tactics based on his responses. They're environmental hazards given form and basic intelligence, dangerous to unprepared adventurers, but manageable obstacles for someone with his level of combat experience and equipment. By dawn, the Doomslayer has cleared a substantial area around his spawn point of hostile mobs, but instead of moving on to find new enemies to destroy, he does something unprecedented. He stops and considers his situation logically. He has arrived in a world with its own rules, systems, and internal logic. Rather than imposing his will upon it through force alone, he begins to study how those systems work. His first experiment is simple. He punches a tree. The wood breaks away in perfect cubic segments, defying every law of physics and material science he's ever encountered. Yet somehow, these impossible wooden cubes retain all the properties of wood while existing as discrete, manipulable objects that can be combined and reshaped according to specific patterns. He punches another tree, then another, accumulating a substantial pile of wooden blocks that hover in his inventory in apparent defiance of both space and weight limitations. This is the moment when everything changes. The Doomslayer, whose entire existence has been defined by destruction, discovers the fundamental building block of creation. Not the grand cosmic act of bringing universes into being, but the simple, practical process of taking raw materials and reshaping them into useful objects. He crafts his first wooden pickaxe with the same methodical precision he once applied to loading ammunition and maintaining weapons. The process is different, but the underlying principle remains the same. Understand your tools, master their capabilities, and use them to achieve your objectives. His objectives, however, remain unclear. In every other dimension he's visited, his purpose was obvious. Demons existed. Therefore, demons must be destroyed. Hell spread its influence. Therefore, hell must be pushed back. The forces of evil threatened innocent life. Therefore, evil must be eradicated. But here, in this blocky realm of infinite possibility, what exactly is his mission? The answer begins to emerge as he encounters his first village. The simple structures rise from the landscape like geometric flowers, their clean lines and purposeful construction speaking to minds that understand the value of order and planning. NPCs move through the streets with the same predictable patterns as the hostile mobs, but their purpose is entirely different. They tend crops, maintain buildings, trade resources, and live their simple lives in peaceful cooperation. For the first time in his existence, the Doomslayer witnesses a functioning society that exists without constant threat of demonic invasion. These villagers don't cower in bunkers or arm themselves against inevitable attack. They simply live, work, create, and thrive in their small corner of an infinite world. The sight triggers something deep in his consciousness that has been dormant for so long he barely recognizes it. Not rage, not bloodlust, not the burning desire to destroy evil wherever it might lurk. Protection, the instinct to shield the innocent from harm, the drive to preserve rather than annihilate. As he watches a farmer tend his crops and a blacksmith work his trade, the Doomslayer remembers what he's been fighting for all along. Not the destruction of demons for its own sake, but the preservation of peaceful life that demons threaten to destroy. This village represents something he hasn't seen since before the demon invasion of his own reality. A place where beings can exist without the constant shadow of annihilation hanging over their heads. Where the greatest concerns involve crop yields and trade negotiations, rather than survival against impossible odds. The peaceful normalcy of it all creates a strange sensation in his chest, something he hasn't felt since he was fully human. But peace in Minecraft comes with its own challenges. As night falls over the village, the familiar groans and rattles of hostile mobs begin to echo across the landscape. The villagers retreat into their homes, barricading doors and hoping their simple defenses will hold until dawn. Some won't be so lucky. The Doomslayer watches from the shadows as zombies pound against wooden doors, their persistence eventually rewarded with splintering wood and terrified villager screams. His response is immediate and absolute. The combat shotgun emerges from his weapon wheel with practiced efficiency. Each shot rings out across the village square with devastating precision. Zombies crumble into experience orbs before they can breach a single home. Skeletons find their arrows intercepted by superhuman reflexes before returning. Fire reduces them to bone meal and string. A creeper attempting to approach the village well meets its end at maximum range, its explosion harmlessly cratering empty ground rather than destroying carefully constructed buildings. Within minutes, the village is secure. Every hostile mob within a 100-block radius has been eliminated with surgical precision. The Doomslayer holsters his weapon and begins a methodical patrol of the perimeter, his enhanced senses cataloging spawn points and identifying potential weaknesses in the village's natural defenses. This is when the villagers begin to emerge from their homes. They've never seen anything like this armored figure who moves through their streets with mechanical precision. His presence should terrify them. Everything about him screams danger, from the scarred armor to the weapons that materialize and disappear at will. Yet somehow they sense no threat from him. Perhaps it's the way he carefully avoids their crops while patrolling. Perhaps it's how his weapons never point in their direction. Or perhaps it's simply that for the first time in their simple existence, they've witnessed true protection rather than mere survival. One particularly brave villager approaches him with a handful of emeralds, the universal currency of trade in their world. The gesture is simple but profound: payment for services rendered. Recognition that his actions have value and deserve compensation. The Doomslayer stares at the offered gems for a long moment, processing implications that extend far beyond their monetary worth. In every other reality he's visited, his actions were driven by duty, revenge, or simple necessity. Never before has anyone offered him payment for destroying demons. The concept of compensation for protection services opens entirely new pathways in his tactical thinking. If these villagers value his abilities enough to offer payment, then perhaps his presence here serves a purpose beyond random dimensional displacement. He accepts the emeralds, not because he needs currency, but because doing so establishes a relationship, a contract of sorts. Protection in exchange for resources. The villagers seem to understand this transaction instinctively, their collective relief palpable as dawn breaks over their secured community. But the Doomslayer's analytical mind is already moving beyond simple mob clearing. He begins to study the village's infrastructure with the same intensity he once applied to analyzing demon strongholds. The layout is efficient but vulnerable. Houses are constructed with materials that provide minimal protection against sustained assault. There are no defensive walls, no watchtowers, and no prepared fallback positions in case of overwhelming attack. His first construction project begins before the sun reaches its zenith. Using blocks harvested from the surrounding landscape, he begins to erect a perimeter wall around the village. Not the crude, hastily assembled barriers that desperate survivors might throw together, but a carefully planned fortification designed to channel enemy movement into predetermined kill zones while providing maximum protection for civilian populations. The villagers watch in amazement as walls rise from the earth with geometric precision. Each block is placed with mathematical accuracy, creating interlocking fields of fire and multiple redundant defensive positions. Guard towers emerge at strategic intervals, their height calculated to provide optimal sight lines across the surrounding terrain. Gates are positioned to allow for controlled entry and exit, while maintaining security during hostile encounters. This construction project reveals another fundamental truth about the Doomslayer's presence in Minecraft. His legendary destructive capabilities are only half of his tactical repertoire. The other half, rarely displayed but equally developed, involves strategic planning and defensive preparation. Every fortress he's ever assaulted, every demon stronghold he's ever infiltrated, has taught him something about effective fortification design. Now, for the first time, he has the opportunity to apply that knowledge constructively, rather than merely finding ways to overcome it. The wall takes 3 full days to complete. During that time, the Doomslayer establishes new routines that would seem impossible to anyone familiar with his previous existence. He sleeps in carefully timed intervals, always awakening before sunset to prepare for the night's mob spawning cycles. He patrols the perimeter with clockwork regularity, his enhanced senses mapping every potential approach route and identifying optimal firing positions for various threat scenarios. More importantly, he begins to interact with the villagers in ways that gradually reshape his understanding of social dynamics. The blacksmith shows him how to combine materials using the village's crafting stations, demonstrating techniques that produce superior equipment with greater efficiency than his standard field maintenance procedures. The farmer explains crop rotation principles and optimal planting strategies, knowledge that proves surprisingly relevant when applied to resource management in a world where sustainability matters more than immediate tactical advantage. These interactions plant seeds of something the Doomslayer hasn't experienced since his pre-demon existence. Mentorship. The transfer of knowledge from teacher to student, not through desperate field training under enemy fire, but through patient instruction in peaceful settings. He finds himself asking questions about game mechanics and world systems, his tactical mind hungry for understanding of this new operational environment. The villagers, in turn, begin to see him as more than just their mysterious protector. They observe how he carefully repairs any damage caused during his patrols. They notice how he replaces any resources he uses with superior alternatives when possible. They witness his genuine interest in their daily activities and his respectful attention to their explanations of local customs and practices. This mutual exchange creates something unprecedented in the Doomslayer's existence: community. Not the desperate camaraderie of soldiers fighting impossible odds, but the peaceful cooperation of individuals working toward shared goals in an environment where success is measured by growth and improvement rather than mere survival. By the end of the first week, the village has been transformed into something approaching an impregnable fortress. The walls are complete, the guard towers are staffed with iron golems whose creation the Doomslayer supervised personally, and the interior layout has been optimized for both daily life and emergency response. But more importantly, the Doomslayer himself has begun a transformation that runs deeper than mere tactical adaptation. He still eliminates hostile mobs with ruthless efficiency. His combat capabilities remain absolutely lethal to anything that threatens the villagers or their property. But the driving rage that once consumed his every waking moment has been replaced by something more sustainable and ultimately more powerful: purpose with direction, protection with planning, violence in service of creation rather than destruction for its own sake. This evolution accelerates when he encounters his first major threat that requires more than simple mob clearing to resolve. A pillager outpost has established itself within raiding distance of the village, its occupants launching regular attacks that his defensive preparations can repel, but not eliminate at the source. The situation presents him with a familiar challenge requiring unfamiliar solutions. In his previous existence, the answer would be simple: assault the outpost, eliminate all hostile forces, destroy the structure, and move on. But here, in this world where destruction is temporary, but construction is permanent, such tactics prove insufficient. Pillagers simply respawn at regular intervals. Their outpost regenerates its defensive structures, and the cycle of raids continues indefinitely. The Doomslayer studies this tactical puzzle with the same methodical approach he once applied to demon strongholds. But now his analysis extends beyond simple force projection to include long-term strategic consequences. Destroying the outpost would provide temporary relief, but fail to address the underlying systemic problem. The pillagers operate according to game mechanics that transcend individual mortality. They represent a renewable threat that requires renewable solutions. His first innovation involves reconnaissance techniques, adapted for a world where information gathering takes precedence over immediate elimination. Using blocks to construct elevated observation platforms, he maps pillager patrol routes with mathematical precision. Their movements follow predictable patterns. Their response protocols remain consistent across multiple encounters, and their tactical capabilities operate within clearly defined parameters. This intelligence-gathering phase reveals something fascinating about hostile mobs in Minecraft that distinguishes them fundamentally from the demons of his previous campaigns. Demons possessed individual malevolence, personal hatred, and adaptive cunning that made each encounter unique. Pillagers, despite their apparent intelligence and coordinated group tactics, operate more like sophisticated environmental hazards. They follow programming rather than pursuing personal vendettas. The distinction proves crucial when developing countermeasures. Rather than planning an assault designed to inflict maximum casualties on thinking enemies, the Doomslayer designs a system for managing renewable threats through sustainable defensive measures. His solution involves creating a network of automated defenses that can neutralize pillager raids without requiring his personal intervention for every encounter. The construction project that follows demonstrates how his legendary efficiency translates into creative applications. Using redstone circuits whose complexity would impress veteran engineers, he designs trap systems that activate automatically when hostile mobs approach within predetermined distances. Pressure plates trigger arrow dispensers positioned at calculated angles. Tripwire hooks activate piston arrays that redirect enemy movement into prepared kill zones. Water channels funnel survivors toward collection points where they can be processed efficiently. But the most innovative aspect of his defensive network involves non-lethal containment systems. Some pillagers find themselves trapped in carefully constructed holding areas where they remain alive but completely unable to threaten village security. This approach serves multiple purposes. Live prisoners provide ongoing intelligence about pillager behavior patterns. They generate experience points through proximity without requiring active combat. Most importantly, they demonstrate that the Doomslayer's tactical thinking has evolved beyond simple elimination toward comprehensive threat management. The villagers observe these construction projects with growing amazement. They've witnessed his combat capabilities and benefited from his protective presence, but watching him engineer complex mechanical systems reveals entirely new dimensions of his expertise. The precise placement of every block, the careful calibration of every timing mechanism, and the systematic testing of every component demonstrate a level of technical knowledge that rivals their most skilled craftsmen. More significantly, they begin to understand that their protector possesses capabilities that extend far beyond violence. His ability to analyze problems, design solutions, and implement complex systems suggests a mind capable of contributions that transcend security concerns. When the village's irrigation system fails due to seasonal changes in water flow, they approach him not as a warrior, but as an engineer. The request triggers another evolutionary leap in the Doomslayer's self-perception. For the first time since awakening from his sarcophagus, someone has asked him to create rather than destroy. The challenge involves redesigning water distribution networks to accommodate changing environmental conditions while maintaining agricultural productivity during drought periods. Success requires understanding hydraulic principles, crop requirements, and sustainable resource management rather than weapon effectiveness and target prioritization. His solution involves constructing an underground aqueduct system that channels water from distant sources through carefully calculated elevation changes. The engineering challenges prove surprisingly engaging, requiring the same systematic problem-solving approach he once applied to navigating demon-infested facilities. But instead of finding ways to bypass security systems and eliminate targets, he's designing systems that support life and enable growth. The construction process reveals how his enhanced physical capabilities translate into civilian applications. His ability to work without fatigue allows for continuous progress on large-scale projects. His perfect spatial awareness ensures accurate placement of every structural component. His tactical planning skills prove equally valuable for coordinating complex construction sequences and managing resource logistics. But the most important discovery involves how creative work affects his psychological state. The rage that once burned constantly in his consciousness begins to subside, replaced by something he hasn't experienced since his pre-demon existence. Satisfaction. Not the grim satisfaction of duty fulfilled or enemies destroyed, but the genuine pleasure of creating something useful that will benefit others long after he's moved on. This psychological shift accelerates when he encounters Minecraft's more complex challenges that require extended engagement rather than immediate solutions. His first encounter with the Nether introduces him to a realm that superficially resembles the hell dimensions he knows so well, but operates according to entirely different principles. The Nether's hostile environment and dangerous inhabitants trigger his combat instincts automatically. Through vast floating lava-lit caverns, launch explosive projectiles with devastating accuracy. Blazes spin through the air like living furnaces, their fire charges capable of igniting anything they touch. Zombie pigmen patrol ancient fortresses with the mechanical persistence he's learned to associate with Minecraft's program behaviors. But unlike the demons of his previous campaigns, these nether inhabitants serve functional purposes within the game's broader ecosystem. Ghasts drop tiers essential for brewing advanced potions. Blazes provide rods necessary for crafting important tools and accessing other dimensions. Even the hostile environment itself contains resources unavailable anywhere else. From glowstone that provides permanent lighting to ancient debris that can be forged into the most durable equipment in the game. This realization transforms his approach to nether exploration from simple combat operations to complex resource extraction missions. Rather than clearing areas of all hostile life, he develops techniques for harvesting necessary materials while minimizing unnecessary conflict. His tactical expertise proves invaluable for navigating dangerous terrain and establishing secure bases in hostile territory, but his objectives focus on acquisition rather than annihilation. The first nether fortress he encounters presents challenges that require creative solutions rather than overwhelming firepower. The structure's layout follows architectural principles designed to confuse and trap intruders, its narrow corridors and dead-end passages creating perfect conditions for ambush tactics. Blazes spawn from dedicated spawners positioned at strategic choke points, their placement ensuring that any approach becomes a running battle against continuous reinforcements. His assault on the fortress demonstrates how combat experience translates into engineering solutions. Rather than fighting through heavily defended corridors, he constructs alternative access routes using blocks harvested from the surrounding environment. His tunneling techniques bypass defensive positions entirely, allowing him to approach spawn rooms from unexpected angles where his superior firepower can neutralize threats before they can coordinate effective resistance. But the most innovative aspect of his fortress infiltration involves converting conquered areas into permanent forward operating bases. Instead of simply looting valuable resources and moving on, he establishes secure positions that can support extended operations in hostile territory. Nether brick walls provide protection against ghast projectiles. Carefully positioned water sources create safe zones where he can retreat if overwhelmed. Storage systems allow for efficient resource management during extended missions. These forward bases serve purposes beyond immediate tactical advantage. They demonstrate his growing understanding of Minecraft's long-term progression systems and his commitment to sustainable advancement rather than short-term gains. The resources he harvests from nether expeditions support increasingly ambitious construction projects in the overworld, from advanced brewing facilities that produce beneficial potions to enchanting systems that enhance equipment capabilities. His first successful brewing session represents another milestone in his transformation from pure destroyer to creator protector. The process requires precise timing, careful resource management, and understanding of complex chemical interactions between various ingredients. Success produces potions that enhance his already formidable capabilities while providing new tools for protecting villagers and supporting their community development. Fire resistance potions allow him to work safely in lava-rich environments. Strength potions increase his already devastating combat effectiveness against stronger enemies. Healing potions provide medical support for injured villagers, representing his first direct involvement in preserving life, rather than simply preventing death through violence. But the most significant brewing achievement involves creating potions that benefit villagers directly, rather than enhancing his own capabilities. Speed potions help farmers work more efficiently during critical planting seasons. Night vision potions allow craftsmen to continue working after dark when hostile mobs make outdoor activities dangerous. Regeneration potions provide ongoing health benefits that help villagers recover from accidents or illnesses. This shift towards supporting others rather than simply protecting them marks another fundamental change in his operational priorities. He begins to see villagers not as civilians requiring defense, but as partners in building something greater than individual survival. Their skills complement his capabilities, their knowledge fills gaps in his understanding, and their presence provides motivation for achievements that transcend personal advancement. The transformation becomes most apparent when he encounters his first major construction challenge that requires collaboration rather than individual effort. The village has grown beyond its original boundaries. Its population expanded through successful defense and improved living conditions. New buildings require materials that exceed local resource availability. Advanced projects demand specialized knowledge that no single individual possesses. His solution involves organizing the first systematic resource extraction operation in the village's history. Rather than venturing alone into dangerous territories, he trains volunteer villagers in safe mining techniques and defensive procedures. His combat expertise ensures their security during expeditions, while their specialized knowledge maximizes efficiency in resource identification and processing. The training process reveals teaching capabilities he never knew he possessed. His ability to break complex procedures into manageable components proves invaluable for instruction. His patience with mistakes and dedication to thorough preparation create learning environments where villagers can develop new skills without fear of catastrophic failure. Most importantly, his genuine respect for their existing expertise establishes collaborative relationships rather than hierarchical command structures. These joint expeditions produce results that exceed anything he could have achieved alone. Villagers identify ore deposits his sensors might have overlooked. Their knowledge of local terrain features reveals optimal routes for transportation and logistics. Their understanding of community needs ensures that resource collection priorities align with actual requirements rather than theoretical military specifications. But the most important outcome involves the relationships that develop during these shared challenges. Working alongside villagers in dangerous environments creates bonds based on mutual trust and proven reliability. He witnesses their courage when facing unknown threats, their ingenuity when solving unexpected problems, and their commitment to supporting teammates even at personal risk. These observations force him to reconsider fundamental assumptions about combat effectiveness and mission success. Throughout his previous existence, he operated as a solitary force multiplier, whose effectiveness depended on individual capabilities and personal determination. Teamwork meant coordinating with other warriors who possessed comparable training and experience. Civilians were objects to be protected rather than partners in achieving shared goals. Here, in this blocky realm where death is temporary, but relationships are permanent, he discovers that collaboration multiplies capabilities in ways that individual excellence cannot match. Villagers contribute perspectives he would never consider, identify solutions he would never discover, and provide motivation for achievements he would never attempt alone. This realization culminates when the village faces its greatest challenge yet. A woodland mansion appears on the horizon, its dark towers and ominous architecture suggesting threats far beyond standard hostile mob encounters. Initial reconnaissance reveals illagers armed with advanced weapons and protected by magical defenses. Their leader, an evoker capable of summoning supernatural allies, represents the most dangerous opponent he's encountered in this reality. The tactical situation demands careful planning and coordinated execution. The mansion's size and complexity make solo infiltration extremely risky. The defender's magical capabilities require countermeasures that exceed his standard equipment loadout. Most critically, the threat's proximity to the village means that failure could result in catastrophic consequences for everyone he's sworn to protect. His response demonstrates how completely his operational philosophy has evolved. Instead of planning a lone assault based on overwhelming personal firepower, he organizes a comprehensive campaign involving every capable member of the village community. Blacksmiths forge specialized equipment designed for specific mission requirements. Farmers provide logistical support through food production and supply management. Librarians research magical countermeasures and identify tactical intelligence about illager capabilities. The preparation phase extends over several weeks, but every day invested in planning reduces risks during execution. Mock-up training exercises allow team members to practice coordinated maneuvers in safe environments. Equipment testing identifies optimal loadouts for various scenarios. Intelligence gathering reveals mansion layout details that inform approach strategies and evacuation procedures. When the assault finally commences, it represents the culmination of everything the Doomslayer has learned about leadership, teamwork, and sustainable victory in this strange new reality. His role shifts from solitary destroyer to coordinator of combined arms operations, where every participant contributes unique capabilities toward shared objectives. The assault begins at dawn, not with the thunderous charge of a lone berserker, but with the measured precision of a military operation where every moving part serves a greater purpose. The Doomslayer leads from the front, but for the first time in his existence, he's not alone in the vanguard. 3 iron golems lumber beside him, their massive forms providing mobile cover, while village archers position themselves at calculated intervals behind defensive barriers constructed from blocks harvested specifically for this operation. The mansion's outer defenses crumble under coordinated fire from multiple directions. Where once he would have punted, now he signals force through walls with raw force and precise explosive placement that creates tactical breaches without compromising structural integrity. The building must be cleared. These chambers will function as secure extraction facilities rather than being simply demolished once they are converted into command posts and equipped with resources. Inside the genius of the mansion's collaborative, twisted corridors, the true hostile forces of neutral tactics become apparent. Villagers equipped with shields create moving barriers that protect ranged fighters, while the Doomslayer engages Vindicators in close combat. Their axes, which would devastate any normal opponent, meet his enhanced reflexes and superior equipment with predictable results. But instead of leaving shattered corpses in his wake, he coordinates with support teams to secure valuable drops and maintain formation integrity as they advance through room after room of increasingly dangerous encounters. The Evoker presents the first genuine challenge that requires adaptation beyond standard procedures. Its fanged creatures materialize from thin air, their spectral forms immune to conventional weapons, while their master hovers beyond reach of direct assault. Traditional Doomslayer tactics would involve finding an angle for direct fire and eliminating the target through superior firepower. But here, surrounded by allies whose safety depends on his decisions, he implements a more sophisticated approach. Village librarians had researched this exact scenario during their preparation phase. Their knowledge of enchantment mechanics provides the key to victory. While the Doomslayer draws the Evoker's attention through aggressive maneuvering, specially equipped villagers deploy totems of undying at strategic positions. The magicalized Evoker's artifacts create zones of protection that neutralize devastating attacks, while providing safe positions for sustained counterfire. The battle becomes a chess match played at superhuman speed. The Evoker adapts its tactics as the engagement progresses, summoning different types of creatures and varying its attack patterns to counter the team's defensive measures. But the Doomslayer's analytical mind processes these changes faster than any human could follow, communicating tactical adjustments through predetermined signals that keep his team coordinated despite the chaos of magical combat. When the Evoker finally falls, it's not through overwhelming individual violence, but through precise teamwork where every participant contributed essential elements to the victory. The drops it provides become shared resources rather than personal trophies. The mansion itself transforms from conquered territory into a community asset that will serve multiple purposes for years to come. But the most significant outcome involves what happens after the victory. In his previous existence, successful missions ended with departure to the next objective. Demons were destroyed, facilities were cleared, and the Doomslayer moved on to wherever violence was needed next. Here, victory marks the beginning of a new phase rather than the conclusion of a temporary engagement. The mansion requires extensive renovation to serve its new purpose as an advanced research and development facility. Its spacious chambers provide ideal environments for experimental brewing operations and complex enchanting procedures that were impossible in the village's more limited facilities. The dark oak architecture, once ominous and foreboding, becomes elegant and stately when properly maintained and illuminated with glowstone installations that banish every shadow. More importantly, the collaborative victory establishes new precedents for how the community approaches major challenges. Villagers who participated in the assault return with enhanced confidence and proven combat experience. They've faced genuine danger alongside their legendary protector and discovered that they possess capabilities they never knew existed. This transformation affects every aspect of village life as formerly passive civilians become active participants in their own defense and development. The Doomslayer observes these changes with something approaching parental pride. These people he once saw as helpless civilians have evolved into competent allies capable of meaningful contributions to complex operations. Their growth reflects his own transformation from solitary destroyer to community leader whose greatest achievements involve enabling others to exceed their perceived limitations. This evolution accelerates when news arrives of threats beyond anything they've previously encountered. Messenger villagers from distant communities bring reports of a massive structure appearing in the sky above a far-off desert. Their descriptions match nothing in any database or reference material, but the accompanying accounts of strange lights and reality distortions trigger recognition patterns in the Doomslayer's enhanced memory systems. The end portal has activated somewhere in the world, its opening creating dimensional instabilities that affect weather patterns, mob spawn rates, and even the fundamental physics of nearby regions. The Ender Dragon, imprisoned for millennia in its pocket dimension, has begun to stir as the barriers containing it weaken with each passing day. When it finally breaks free, its power will reshape entire continents according to alien geometries that human minds struggle to comprehend. This revelation represents the ultimate test of everything the Doomslayer has learned about leadership and community building in this blocky reality. The Ender Dragon possesses capabilities that dwarf any threat he's previously encountered in Minecraft. Its ability to destroy blocks regardless of their composition renders conventional fortifications useless. Its flight capabilities and ranged attacks make standard defensive positions ineffective. Most critically, its dimensional nature means that defeating it requires entering the End Realm itself, a hostile environment where retreat becomes impossible and failure means permanent separation from everything he's worked to protect. The tactical challenges involved in planning an assault on the End Dimension exceed anything he's previously attempted. Unlike the Mansion Raid, which took place in familiar territory with established supply lines and secure fallback positions, entering the End means committing to battle in an alien realm where the fundamental rules of reality operate according to different principles. There are no blocks to mine for construction materials, no water sources for emergency refuge, and no day-night cycles to provide natural breaks in activity. In hostile mob. Worse still, the End's geography consists primarily of floating islands separated by voids that kill anything falling into them. Navigation requires careful planning and precise execution, where a single mistake results in permanent death rather than a simple respawn. The Ender Dragon's ability to knock players off these precarious platforms makes every moment of combat a life or death situation where even minor errors cascade into catastrophic failure. But the most daunting aspect involves the mission's implications for his community. Success means saving not just his village, but potentially the entire overworld from dimensional collapse as the End's alien physics spread outward from the portal site. Failure means abandoning everyone he's learned to care about to face an apocalyptic transformation that will render their peaceful existence impossible. For the first time since arriving in this reality, the Doomslayer faces a challenge that cannot be solved through superior individual capabilities or even exemplary teamwork. The Ender Dragon represents a cosmic-level threat that requires resources and preparation beyond anything a single community can provide. Victory demands collaboration on a scale he's never attempted, involving coordination between multiple villages, careful management of limited resources, and strategic planning that extends far beyond tactical considerations. His response demonstrates how completely his worldview has transformed since that first night spent clearing zombies from around a simple village. Instead of immediately beginning combat preparations, he initiates a diplomatic campaign designed to build the largest coalition in Minecraft history. Messenger villagers carry carefully crafted proposals to every community within a 1,000-block radius, explaining the threat and requesting specific contributions to the joint defense effort. The negotiations require skills he developed through months of collaborative problem-solving with his own villagers. Each community has unique capabilities, specific needs, and particular concerns that must be addressed before they'll commit resources to a seemingly impossible mission. Desert villages provide cactus-based defensive materials and expertise in managing hostile environments. Mountain settlements offer advanced mining equipment and knowledge of deep cave navigation. Coastal communities contribute fishing resources and boat-building techniques that prove surprisingly relevant for navigating the End's treacherous terrain. But the most crucial negotiations involve establishing command structures that preserve local autonomy while enabling coordinated action across vast distances. The Doomslayer's reputation as a protector, rather than a conqueror, proves essential for gaining trust from communities that have never worked together before. His demonstrated commitment to collaborative decision-making, rather than dictatorial control, convinces skeptical leaders that this alliance serves mutual interests rather than advancing hidden agendas. The coalition that emerges represents something unprecedented in Minecraft's history. Dozens of villages contribute specialized resources and unique expertise toward a shared objective that transcends individual community interests. The logistics involved in coordinating such a massive undertaking require organizational systems that rival anything from his military background, but are adapted for civilian populations with different motivations and capabilities. Construction of the Coalition's forward operating base becomes a monument to collaborative engineering that pushes Minecraft's building mechanics to their absolute limits. The facility must accommodate hundreds of personnel from different communities while providing specialized work areas for brewing, enchanting, equipment maintenance, and strategic planning. Its defensive systems must protect against both conventional mob attacks and the reality distortions that intensify as the End Portal's influence spreads across the overworld. The base's centerpiece involves a massive training facility where Coalition members practice the specialized techniques required for End Dimension combat. Unlike conventional military training that focuses on individual skill development, these exercises emphasize coordination and mutual support under the extreme conditions they'll face in the alien realm. Participants learn to fight while maintaining formation on narrow platforms, coordinate movements across gaps that require precise timing, and support teammates who fall behind during extended engagements. But the most innovative training involves psychological preparation for an environment that challenges fundamental assumptions about reality itself. The End's alien architecture and hostile atmosphere create disorientation that can paralyze even experienced fighters. Its silence, broken only by the sounds of combat and the Ender Dragon's otherworldly roars, affects mental state in ways that conventional preparation cannot address. The Doomslayer's solution draws on his own experiences, adapting to radically different realities. He creates simulation environments that gradually expose trainees to increasingly alien conditions while providing safe spaces for recovery when disorientation becomes overwhelming. These controlled exposure sessions build tolerance for the End's psychological challenges, while identifying individuals who possess natural resistance to dimensional displacement effects. As the Coalition's preparations near completion, intelligence gathering reveals that the situation has become more urgent than anyone initially realized. The end portal's dimensional instabilities are accelerating rather than stabilizing, creating cascade effects that threaten to tear permanent holes in reality's fabric. Delay is no longer an option, despite incomplete preparations and unresolved logistical challenges. The final briefing takes place in the Coalition base's Central Command Chamber, a massive amphitheater where representatives from every participating community gather to review assault plans one last time. The Doomslayer stands before an audience that includes farmers who've never held weapons, craftsmen whose expertise lies in creation rather than destruction, and village leaders whose responsibilities extend far beyond personal survival. His address to the assembled forces reflects how completely his communication style has evolved since arriving in this reality. Where once he might have delivered grim tactical assessments focused on acceptable casualty rates and mission objectives, now he speaks of shared purpose and mutual support. He acknowledges the risks they all face while emphasizing the capabilities they've developed through months of collaborative preparation. Most importantly, he addresses the fear that he can see in many faces around the amphitheater. These are not professional soldiers trained to accept death as an occupational hazard. They are civilians who chose to leave safe homes and risk everything to protect a world they've never seen threatened before. Their courage deserves recognition, but more than that, it deserves leadership that minimizes unnecessary risks while maximizing their chances of returning home safely. The assault plan he presents reflects this commitment to preserving life while achieving mission objectives. Rather than a single massive attack designed to overwhelm the Ender Dragon through superior numbers, the strategy involves multiple coordinated phases that allow for tactical adjustment before the main force as circumstances change. Advanced teams establish secure positions on end islands as they arrive. Support elements maintain supply lines and provide evacuation routes for personnel who become incapacitated during combat. Most critically, the plan includes contingencies for partial success and strategic withdrawal if the situation becomes untenable, unlike his previous existence, where missions ended in total victory or total defeat. This operation recognizes that protecting the Coalition's personnel might require accepting incomplete objectives if the alternative involves catastrophic casualties. The portal chamber where their journey begins stands in stark contrast to the collaborative warmth of the Coalition base. Ancient stone blocks form geometric patterns that hurt the eye to follow, their surfaces inscribed with symbols that predate any known civilization. The portal itself hangs in the air like a tear in reality, its interior revealing glimpses of alien landscapes that defy every natural law. Standing before this dimensional gateway, surrounded by hundreds of allies who trust his leadership despite knowing the dangers they face, the Doomslayer experiences something that would have been impossible during his previous existence. Not the cold certainty of duty or the burning rage of vengeance, but the complex emotions of someone whose actions affect people he genuinely cares about protecting. The moment of transition arrives with mechanical inevitability. One by one, Coalition members step through the portal into the alien realm beyond. The Doomslayer goes last, not from cowardice, but from leadership principle. A commander's place is wherever his people need him most, and right now they need him watching dangerous environments, and any of them will have their backs as they enter every phase. Then, like a nightmare unfolds around rendered in obsidian and void. Dimensions are ended by nothing but desperate stone floating in absolute. Islands of pale darkness connect hope and careful overhead, its massive form blotting out stars, planning. The Ender Dragon circles that shine and roar echoes across the impossible with alien light. Its landscape is filled with harmonics that resonate in dimensions beyond human perception. But for the first time since awakening in that sarcophagus on Mars, the Doomslayer does not face cosmic horror alone. Hundreds of voices respond to the dragon's challenge with coordinated battle cries that transform terror into determination. Equipment crafted through months of collaborative effort gleams with enchantments designed specifically for this encounter. Most importantly, every person standing on these floating islands chose to be here, not from desperation or duty, but from commitment to protecting something greater than individual survival. The battle that follows will determine not just the fate of the overworld, but the future of everything the Doomslayer has learned about community, leadership, and the power of creation over destruction. In this alien realm, where death means permanent separation from everything he's built, surrounded by people whose trust he's earned through months of patient collaboration, the ultimate destroyer prepares to face his greatest challenge yet. But this time, he faces it not as the Doomslayer, solitary avatar of vengeance against the forces of hell. This time, he stands as something new, something that this blocky reality has taught him to become. A protector whose strength comes not from rage or duty, but from the unbreakable bonds forged through shared purpose and mutual respect. The Ender Dragon's first attack comes not as a direct assault, but as a test of the Coalition's resolve. Its massive wings generate pressure waves that threaten to knock entire formations off their precarious platforms, while its piercing shriek resonates through dimensions in ways that make reality itself seem unstable. Lesser beings would scatter in terror at such a display of cosmic power. But these villagers have spent months preparing for exactly this moment, their training hardened by trust in leadership that has never failed them. The response comes as a symphony of coordinated movement that would make any military strategist weep with admiration. Enchanted shields locked together in overlapping formations that deflect the dragon's breath attacks while maintaining structural integrity across multiple floating islands. Crossbow batteries establish interlocking fields of fire calculated to track the beast's flight patterns without endangering friendly forces positioned on adjacent platforms. Most impressively, the psychological preparation proves its worth as hundreds of civilian fighters maintain discipline despite facing a creature that embodies nightmares beyond mortal comprehension. The Doomslayer moves through this coordinated chaos like a conductor directing an orchestra of destruction. His enhanced senses process battlefield information at superhuman speeds, identifying tactical opportunities and potential threats faster than any normal commander could track. But his role has evolved beyond simple target identification and elimination. Every decision he makes must account for the safety and effectiveness of hundreds of allies whose capabilities vary dramatically, from seasoned fighters to craftsmen whose primary weapon experience involves hammering metal rather than wielding it in combat. His first direct engagement with the Ender Dragon demonstrates how profoundly his tactical approach has changed since arriving in this reality. Where once he might have launched himself at the creature with overwhelming firepower and absolute disregard for collateral damage, now he coordinates a complex maneuver designed to create opportunities for his allies, while minimizing their exposure to the dragon's most devastating attacks. His rocket launcher emerges from his weapon wheel not for maximum destruction, but for precise shots calculated to force the dragon into predetermined flight paths, where Coalition forces can engage it safely. The beast responds with intelligence that exceeds anything documented in existing references about end-dimension encounters. Rather than following predictable attack patterns, it adapts its tactics based on the Coalition's responses, varying altitude and approach angles to exploit gaps in their defensive formations. Its ability to destroy blocks regardless of composition forces, constant repositioning as carefully constructed fortifications crumble under concentrated fire from its breath attacks. But adaptation works both ways, and the Coalition's diverse composition provides tactical flexibility that homogeneous forces could never achieve. When the Dragon's block destruction capabilities threaten to collapse a critical defensive position, village engineers deploy rapidly constructed scaffolding systems that redirect its destructive force while maintaining platform integrity. Desert specialists familiar with environmental hazards recognize early warning signs of the Dragon's most dangerous attacks, providing advance notice that allows formations to adjust positioning before devastation arrives. The true test comes when the Dragon shifts to close-range combat, diving toward the largest concentration of coalition forces with talons extended and jaws agape. This moment represents everything the Doomslayer has learned about leadership under extreme pressure, distilled into split-second decision-making. His enhanced reflexes could easily carry him clear of the attack, but hundreds of allies lack his superhuman capabilities. Their survival depends entirely on decisions he makes in the microseconds before impact. His response synthesizes months of collaborative training into a single fluid motion that saves dozens of lives while creating tactical advantage from apparent disaster. Instead of dodging the attack, he positions himself directly in the Dragon's path while signaling predetermined maneuvers that scatter allied forces according to practiced emergency procedures. The creature's massive claws rake across his enhanced armor with force sufficient to shatter mountains, but his positioning allows him to redirect its momentum, while coalition forces execute flanking maneuvers that would have been impossible without his sacrifice. The Dragon's roar of frustrated rage echoes across the end dimension as it realizes that its most devastating attack has been turned into a tactical disadvantage. Dozens of crossbow bolts strike its exposed flanks while it struggles to recover from the redirected dive, each projectile enchanted with specific effects designed to maximize damage against its otherworldly physiology. More importantly, the successful execution of complex emergency maneuvers under ultimate pressure demonstrates that months of collaborative training have transformed civilian volunteers into a fighting force capable of coordinating sophisticated tactics against cosmic-level threats. But the Ender Dragon possesses reserves of power that dwarf anything the Coalition has faced before. As the battle progresses and its initial attacks prove insufficient, the creature begins to tap into abilities that warp the fundamental nature of reality itself. The End Dimension responds to its will, floating islands shifting position according to alien geometries, while void spaces expand and contract in patterns that make navigation increasingly treacherous. Worse still, the Dragon's connection to this realm allows it to summon reinforcements that exist partially outside normal space-time. Endermen begin materializing on Coalition platforms, their teleportation abilities making them nearly impossible to target, while their interference disrupts carefully planned formations. Each creature possesses the strength to kill unarmored humans with single blows, yet their unpredictable movement patterns make conventional defensive measures ineffective. The Doomslayer recognizes this escalation as a critical decision point that will determine the battle's ultimate outcome. The Coalition possesses sufficient firepower and tactical coordination to defeat the Ender Dragon under normal circumstances, but the addition of teleporting reinforcements creates complexity that threatens to overwhelm their command and control systems. Traditional military doctrine would suggest consolidating forces into defensive positions while seeking opportunities for tactical withdrawal. But withdrawal means abandoning the mission and accepting the overworld's gradual transformation into an alien hellscape as end-dimension physics spread outward from the portal. More critically, retreat would mean failing the hundreds of people who trusted his leadership enough to follow him into this impossible situation. Their courage deserves better than strategic abandonment when victory remains achievable through sufficient commitment and tactical innovation. His solution demonstrates how completely his operational philosophy has evolved since that first night of zombie clearing around a simple village. Instead of attempting to control every aspect of the battlefield through centralized command, he implements distributed leadership protocols that empower individual units to respond to local threats while maintaining overall coordination towards strategic objectives. Village leaders who accompanied the expedition assumed tactical command of their respective forces, implementing specialized responses based on their community's unique capabilities, while the Doomslayer focuses on engaging the dragon directly. The transformation is immediate and dramatic. Coalition forces that had been struggling to maintain cohesion under centralized control suddenly display the flexibility and initiative that made their individual communities successful. Desert fighters use their expertise in hostile environment navigation to establish secure positions on unstable platforms. Mountain specialists deploy their knowledge of vertical terrain to create three-dimensional defensive networks that confuse teleporting Endermen. Coastal communities contribute their understanding of fluid dynamics to predict the dragon's flight patterns based on air current analysis. Most importantly, this distributed approach allows the Doomslayer to engage the Ender Dragon as an equal rather than trying to coordinate hundreds of subordinates while simultaneously fighting a cosmic-level opponent. His enhanced capabilities finally receive the tactical freedom necessary to match the creature's supernatural abilities, transforming their confrontation from desperate survival into genuine combat between forces of comparable magnitude. The dragon quickly recognizes this shift in tactical balance and responds with attacks designed specifically to exploit his apparent isolation from allied support. Its breath weapon focuses exclusively on his position, attempting to overwhelm his defenses through concentrated firepower, while Enderman coordinates strikes, timed to coincide with moments when he's most vulnerable to secondary attacks. The creature's intelligence becomes fully apparent as it demonstrates understanding of human tactical doctrine and adaptive countermeasures designed to neutralize specific advantages. But the Doomslayer's connection to his allies extends beyond simple command authority. Months of collaborative problem-solving have created intuitive understanding of their capabilities and limitations that transcends formal communication protocols. He recognizes opportunities for combined operations without requiring explicit coordination, while coalition forces anticipate his movements and provide support before he needs to request assistance. This synthesis of individual excellence and collaborative coordination produces tactical combinations that neither side could achieve independently. When the dragon's breath attack forces him into evasive maneuvers that temporarily reduce his offensive capability, crossbow batteries automatically adjust their firing patterns to maintain pressure while he repositions. When Endermen teleport to exploit his apparent vulnerability, village fighters engage them with techniques specifically developed during training exercises that assumed exactly this scenario. The battle reaches its climax when the Ender Dragon makes its final desperate gambit, channeling power directly from the End Dimension's core to fuel attacks that threaten to collapse entire sections of the realm's geography. Floating islands begin to crack and crumble as fundamental forces strain beyond their natural limits. Void spaces expand unpredictably, creating navigation hazards that could separate coalition forces from each other and from any possibility of coordinated retreat. In this moment of ultimate crisis, the Doomslayer faces a choice that epitomizes everything this blocky reality has taught him about leadership and sacrifice. His enhanced capabilities could probably carry him through the dimensional collapse to safety, but hundreds of allies lack his supernatural resilience. Their survival requires someone to stabilize the realm's failing structure long enough for organized evacuation, a task that would demand every ounce of his strength and potentially more. The decision requires no conscious deliberation. Months of community building and collaborative achievement have created bonds that transcend tactical calculation or strategic necessity. These people followed him into impossible danger because they trusted his commitment to their welfare above his own survival. That trust deserves reciprocation regardless of personal cost or mission considerations. His response demonstrates the full extent of his transformation from solitary destroyer to community protector. Instead of engaging the dragon in final combat while reality collapses around them, He turns his enhanced capabilities toward stabilizing the end dimension's failing structure. His strength, once dedicated exclusively to annihilation, now serves to hold broken islands together, while his allies execute emergency evacuation procedures. His weapons, designed for maximum destructive potential, target stress points in the realm's geometry to prevent catastrophic collapse rather than inflicting damage on enemies. The Ender Dragon recognizes this shift in priorities and attempts to exploit what appears to be tactical abandonment of offensive operations. Its attacks intensify as it perceives victory within reach. Breath weapons and claw strikes focusing on the apparently defenseless figure, who seems more concerned with construction work than combat. But the creature's intelligence fails to account for the tactical implications of distributed leadership and collaborative preparation. Coalition forces, freed from dependency on centralized command by months of training in autonomous operations, implement the most sophisticated coordinated assault in Minecraft history. Every crossbow fires according to predetermined timing sequences that create overlapping fields of destruction. Every enchanted weapon strikes with maximum effect, enhanced by potions brewed specifically for this encounter. Every participant contributes their maximum capability toward a shared objective that transcends individual survival or glory. The dragon's death comes not through overwhelming individual heroics, but through perfect execution of collaborative tactics, where every element builds upon every other element to create results that exceed the sum of their parts. Its final roar echoes across dimensions as alien flesh yields to coordinated pressure from hundreds of sources, each one precisely calculated to contribute optimal damage at exactly the right moment. But victory brings its own challenges as the end dimension begins to collapse without the dragon's power maintaining its unnatural stability. The portal home flickers with energy fluctuations that suggest imminent closure, while floating islands drift apart as gravitational forces reassert natural laws. Evacuation becomes a desperate race against dimensional physics that threatens to trap everyone in a realm that no longer possesses the structure necessary to support human life. The Doomslayer's role in these final moments demonstrates how completely his priorities have evolved since arriving in this reality. Rather than claiming trophies from his defeated opponent or ensuring his own escape route, he coordinates the most complex logistical operation of his existence. Every person who followed him into this alien realm must return home safely, regardless of the personal risks involved in ensuring their evacuation. His enhanced capabilities prove essential for managing evacuation procedures under conditions that would overwhelm normal human coordination. He tracks hundreds of individual positions across multiple unstable platforms while calculating optimal movement sequences that minimize exposure to collapsing terrain. When coalition members become separated from main evacuation routes, he personally retrieves them from positions that would be unreachable for anyone lacking his superhuman mobility and environmental resistance. The portal chamber becomes a scene of controlled chaos as hundreds of evacuees funnel through dimensional barriers, while reality continues to collapse around them. The Doomslayer maintains his position until the absolute last moment, ensuring that every single person who entered the end dimension returns safely to the overworld. Only when the final coalition member disappears through the flickering portal does he allow himself to follow, stepping through the dimensional barrier just as it collapses permanently behind him. The return to familiar blocky landscapes feels almost surreal after the alien geometries of the end dimension. Solid ground that doesn't float in void, skies that contain recognizable celestial objects, and air that doesn't carry the taste of otherworldly energies create an almost overwhelming sense of homecoming. But the most profound relief comes from seeing hundreds of faces that reflect his own amazement at their collective survival and success. The celebration that follows represents something unprecedented in his existence, not the grim satisfaction of duty completed or the hollow victory of enemies destroyed, but genuine joy shared with people who chose to face impossible odds because they believed in collaborative achievement. Their success belongs to everyone who contributed, from the fighters who engaged the dragon directly to the support personnel who maintained equipment and managed logistics. Most importantly, their victory demonstrates that even cosmic-level threats yield to sufficient preparation and coordinated effort. But perhaps the most significant transformation involves what happens after the celebration ends and normal life resumes in communities across the Coalition. The experience of successful collaboration against ultimate danger creates bonds that transcend the original emergency. Villages that had never communicated before establish permanent trade relationships and mutual defense agreements. Techniques developed for end-dimension combat find applications in mining operations and construction projects. Most importantly, hundreds of people return to their homes with expanded understanding of their own capabilities and the potential for achievement through collaborative effort. The Doomslayer observes these developments with something approaching paternal satisfaction. His intervention in this reality has produced effects that extend far beyond simple threat elimination or individual community protection. The Coalition's success has demonstrated principles of cooperation and mutual support that will influence how these societies address future challenges for generations to come. His own community reflects these broader changes in ways that would have seemed impossible when he first arrived to clear zombies from around a simple village. The settlement has grown into a major regional center whose influence extends across vast distances through trade networks and diplomatic relationships established during Coalition operations. Advanced facilities for brewing, enchanting, and equipment production support not just local needs, but also contribute resources to allied communities throughout the known world. More significantly, the village has become a destination for individuals seeking to learn the collaborative techniques that made the Coalition's success possible. Former Coalition members serve as instructors in training programs that teach everything from basic combat coordination to advanced logistical planning. The Doomslayer's transformation from solitary destroyer to community leader has created a legacy that multiplies his impact far beyond anything achievable through individual action. Yet challenges remain that test the sustainability of everything they've built together. News arrives of new threats emerging in distant regions, some natural disasters requiring coordinated relief efforts, others hostile forces that seem to have learned from the Coalition's success and adapted countermeasures designed to exploit collaborative approaches. Each situation demands careful analysis to determine whether intervention serves a genuine need or merely satisfies the desire to apply proven techniques to new problems. The Doomslayer's responses to these challenges reflect his continued evolution as a leader, whose effectiveness depends on knowing when not to act as much as when to commit resources to major operations. Not every problem requires a military solution, and not every threat justifies the risks involved in large-scale intervention. His enhanced analytical capabilities now serve to evaluate situations based on multiple criteria that extend far beyond tactical considerations to include political requirements, long-term consequence implications, and resources for all affected communities. This measured approach proves its worth when reports arrive of strange structures appearing in ocean biomes far from any established settlements. Initial descriptions suggest architecture that resembles neither known building techniques nor natural formations, while accompanying accounts of reality distortions and temporal anomalies trigger recognition patterns that make his enhanced senses tingle with familiar warnings. The ocean monuments represent challenges that combine elements from every major threat he's encountered in this reality. Their aquatic environment creates tactical complications similar to nether operations, while their guardian inhabitants possess combat capabilities that rival Illager magic users. Most critically, their apparent connection to dimensional forces beyond normal Minecraft physics suggests that intervention could trigger consequences extending far beyond immediate tactical objectives. And so the Doomslayer's journey through the blocky realm reaches its ultimate revelation. What began as dimensional displacement evolved into something far more profound than anyone could have predicted. The destroyer of demons discovered that true strength lies not in solitary violence, but in the unbreakable bonds forged through shared purpose and mutual sacrifice. His transformation from vengeful warrior to community protector demonstrates that even the most hardened souls can find redemption through service to something greater than themselves. In this pixelated paradise, where creation conquers destruction and collaboration triumphs over chaos, the last thing you'd expect becomes the most important truth of all.